Welcome, students. Welcome. So welcome to Success Looks Like Me. Today we're speaking with women in tech, 4 alumni who are women working in the field of technology. You can see in the chat here, the presentation will be starting shortly. Definitely to get us started though, introduce yourself in the chat. Please tell us, and your alumni, your year in school, your major. You'll be able to ask questions once we get rolling here. And you can learn more about our alumni panelists there in the chat as well with that link to an external page, which will take you to the profiles of all of the alumni who are here as our guests tonight. We will give a few more minutes. We'll get started at 5:35, I figure. For introducing yourself, Bridget. If others would like to introduce themselves, please feel free. We'll get started in just a minute here. Michaela, excellent. All right, welcome. So we will go ahead and get started. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. You're welcome to Success Looks Like Me, hosted by SuccessWorks. Today we are speaking with women in tech. So we're proud to welcome 4 of our alumni to speak to us about their experiences as women working in the field of technology. Just to give a kind of a brief overview here, my name is Beth Carabin. I'm one of the career advisors at SuccessWorks. I advise students on tech data and analytics. So if you have come to SuccessWorks, you may have talked to me. We have some other SuccessWorks staff here tonight, some helping out behind the scenes, acting as support moderators. If you have questions at any time, you can message Nancy in the chat. You just go to direct to Nancy and she'll be able to help you out if you have technical difficulties. How this is going to work tonight, we have a smaller group, so we're actually probably going to stay in this main room and do a 4-person panel with all 4 of our alumni. Once the alumni introduce themselves, the floor will be open to questions from the audience. If you are comfortable sharing your camera and your audio, please do so. It's always great to do a professional or a kind of a face-to-face connection with folks, both personal and professional connections. If you can't do that though, it's also okay to use the chat to drop your questions or just to do audio, whatever you're most comfortable with. So I believe that let's, let me see here. When you aren't speaking, please leave your mic off. That's for everyone involved just to kind of keep the sound under control. And yeah, let's go ahead and dive into panelist introductions. Stacey, Allison, Tara Linda, and Olivia. Do you guys have a preference of who goes first? Otherwise, I will Choose. Let's start with Allison, alphabetically.
All right. Well, I really appreciate being invited tonight. My name is Allison Weber. My undergraduate is in chemical engineering, and then I went to University of Wisconsin-Madison for a PhD in genetics. I then did a postdoc at North Carolina State University, and then I went to work at Syngenta for 4 years, then moved to Monsanto, who was acquired by Bayer. and I've been there maybe 6 or 7 years now. I am a quantitative geneticist / data scientist. So I was a senior genomics data scientist, and recently I was promoted to be a principal genome design scientist. And in my day-to-day, I get to work, all my work's done on the cloud. I get to partner and collaborate with people at Amazon and work with Google BigQuery and all that fun stuff. So I'm looking forward to talking to you guys tonight.
Excellent. Next, let's do Olivia.
Hi everyone, I'm Olivia. I graduated from Wisconsin Medicine in 2014, majored in statistics, economics, and minor in mathematics. So after that, I moved to grad school in New York University and continued my journey on mathematics. And after that, I got my first job in Wyndham Worldwide, which is a hotel conglomerate. So over there, I was doing the marketing, focus on the pricing, figure out whether the price is optimum price in different hotel locations. And so during this Wyndham time, I figure out I want to explore more and try different new industries. So I moved to tech industry and worked in Uber as a data scientist, focused on the growth marketing and also products. So I got a chance to explore different sides of the company, different speed of the work, and also different domain of the data science work, including the data, the experiment, operational research, advanced marketing, and product science. And now I'm working Square, which is a payment company focused on the point of sale payment and also the P2P payment transfer, such as the Cash App and also Afterpay. So over in Square, I still focus on the marketing science and also on the product side. So I'm happy to share more about my experience with you guys later.
Outstanding. Stacey?
Hello, my name is Stacey Vely. I graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 2000 with a degree in mathematics and computer science. I then went to work directly. I stayed in the state of Wisconsin. I went directly to work for a company in Milwaukee area, and it was a B2B business integration organization, as well as a healthcare equipment organization. While I was there, I did complete my MBA as part of from Keller Graduate School of Management. During that time, I did meet and marry my husband. We both were working at that same healthcare organization, so made the decision to minimize risk, and I decided to venture off into a different organization. I then went to work with some colleagues that I had worked with at that organization, but I went to a much larger organization, a national food service organization, in which I got many opportunities. And I first began my remote working career at that point. And then they went through an acquisition, and then they decided to do sweeping cuts for layoffs. And they did that for everybody that was remote. And so I was a part of that. And so then my journey took me to a startup, again, with some former colleagues, to launch another similar healthcare organization, business to business organization. And after a number of years there, my growing family and the always 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day really got to be intensive and a little too much for my growing family to take. And so then I opted to join the consulting firm that I'm with today. Again, I joined the Wisconsin regional-based consulting firm that does software development and software delivery, technology delivery. And we were recently purchased by an international organization. And so now I've went from my small regional organization to this big national or international organization. So I've really had a lot of opportunity to explore many different sizes of organizations, many different experiences in general. And with my current role as a consultant, I not only lead complex software development projects and delivery there, but I also have the role of mentoring our incoming interns and as well as our incoming associates and acclimating them to project delivery within our core environment and our project delivery environment. I just love this type of or what I do. So I'm happy to be able to offer some perspective to folks today.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Tara Linda.
Thanks, Beth. Really excited to be here today. So I had an interesting journey. You'll have to pay attention because it ends with calling you live from a van in rural Georgia. So I graduated from UW in 2010, had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, still don't. My first job out of school was working on the Union South construction project, which is a great, beautiful building. I sort of ran around between the people who were going to use the building and the people who were building it and making everything work. Loved that project. Went to school, got my MBA afterwards. Then ended up starting a company with a co-founder working on a PhD in computer science at UW. And that was focused, we started in the construction industry. So helping companies find leads, which was a problem I identified when I was working on the Union South construction project. We took some venture capital, did the traditional startup thing, went through the generator or G-Beta program, which some of you in computer science may have heard of. From there, worked on that for 5 years, and at the end of last year, sold that company to a larger organization called FiscalNote, which is really focused on global policy. We fill a need for them of really understanding the company. Of course, any startup pivoted 100 times, but we ended up in this local policy game. So we work with companies like Starbucks. It's one you probably will all recognize, helping them understand where plastic straw bans are changing, where plastic chemical things are changing, things like that, where the environmental things are changing. So with that, then took a little money out of the acquisition, bought a boat, bought a van, and now coming to you live from rural Georgia, having fun. Going to stick around with FiscalNote for 2 years with my team of 25. We're based right out of Madison, Wisconsin, up on the square. So if you're looking for internships, this is my shameless plug. Thank you.
Excellent. It's so great to have all four of you here, such different perspectives on a huge and ever-changing industry with so many different ways to come at it. Yeah, and definitely shameless internship plugs are all good. Most students are looking for internships. So students, that actually is a nice transition to your questions. So reminder, you can raise your hand using the reactions button. You can just click raise your hand and it'll do that. You can also put your questions in the chat if you would prefer to do that. But I think maybe, I guess we'll kick things off with just a question to all of our panelists. How did you choose, I guess you talked a little bit about your different fields. How did you know that that was a good field for you? Tech is such a big area. How did you kind of narrow down your interests and select where you've landed?
Maybe I can get started on this. So for me, before I landed my official career on tech industry, I actually tried lots of different jobs and figure out what I really like. So jobs like the nonprofits, the pharmaceutical company, and also some like the traditional Fortune 500. All these companies are good companies, definitely, and they are leaders in their industry. But I just feel like in terms of culture-wise, I'm more looking for something that is less, let's say. So especially after I moved to Uber and Square, I feel like here is like, as long as you have good ideas, regardless you are junior, senior, you are individual contributor, or you are management position, feel free to speak up and you can surface your idea easily and quickly. And as long as it brings lots of impact and you can prove to bring lots of impact by using numbers, then it's usually have a green light on this kind of project. So I really like the environment to have this foster this kind of process. So that's why I stay in the tech industry for like 7 years.
I go next.
Allison.
Yeah, for me, I kind of got there in a roundabout way. So I did my undergrad in chemical engineering, and I really didn't want to do that. After I did an internship, I thought this is not for me. So that's a positive thing. So internships are always good, even if you figure out you don't want to do that. But I had a job in a human genetics lab, and I started working on sort of working on their computer system. And then I talked them into letting me run some experiments in the lab. And that's when I really loved that. And so for me, I've tried a lot of different things. I've worked in many different systems, humans. I work in plants now and used to work in fruit flies. And I've worked on the lab side and the analytics side. But to me, it's good to try different things, but if you really are passionate about something, you always come back to that. And what I realized is I really want to understand how our DNA or our genomes result in what we see, right? The phenotype or the traits we see. And in order to answer that question, I realized I had to, learn how to write my programs to run on the cloud and to scale and to do it in a way that I could process a lot of data quickly. So for me, tech is the tool that lets me answer the question I'm passionate about. And so that's how I got into it.
Fantastic. And then Stacey's unmuted as well.
Yep. I think for me, in all honesty, when I left Madison in 2000 with math and computer science, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. When I accepted that position in Milwaukee, I was coming in as a developer, and I really spent a very short time doing development because we learned really quickly that I was able to bridge the gap between technology and business. And that's really where I have done a lot of my career development is in that space, right? Being able to bridge that gap. Yes, do I have code in production somewhere? Absolutely. Do I also have have I taught folks how to manage a project? Have I taught folks how to implement structures like that in their organizations and actually to execute on their own project structures? So really being able to bridge the gap between those two audiences and being able to ensure everyone is understanding what they're doing, understanding the change management and all those pieces. And so it kind of came about just being like, this is what I end up being good at, right? But then a part of that is I get a project team, right? And so you continue to take that further. And my passion, very, very, very similar to what Allison was just describing. And my passion is being able to mentor people and grow people and have a great experience, right? So and that's how I treat my project teams. I typically have a very we'll say that when they create an avatar for me, it's usually a gummy bear because they say I'm a mama bear, right? Because if you want to come attacking, you better like protect I'm going to protect my team, right? But then also it's very squishy, right? Like we just want to make this work. We just want to find the right solution. And so being able to be that mediator, being able to be that mentor is really something that's driven like my desire out of what to get out of my career. And so my skill sets have kind of allowed me into roles that allow me to grow closer and closer and closer to what my passion is. So I do think that there's something to say as you grow and you understand and you learn what's important to you. It's identifying really what is important to you and what steps can you get there along or take along the way to get there.
And then Tara Linda, I want to offer you the chance to add. Otherwise, we can ask the next question.
Nothing life-changing to add.
Sounds good. That's okay. It keeps things moving. Awesome. Reminder, students, you can feel free to ask questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat as well. The next question for all four panelists is, how has your identity impacted your career path in your field?
I think I can probably start with that one if you're okay.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Stacey.
I did make mention during my just quick overview, right? I made some choices in my career path based on minimizing risk to my family when both of my spouse and I worked at the same organization. I also made choices in my career of minimizing and prioritizing more balance for my family as my children were growing, right? And by leaving the startup. And so those things certainly I identify, right? Like I am a mother, I am a wife, I am also a professional. And I also am very committed to having balance in my life. Now, does that always mean I'm 50-50? No, that sometimes means, it's weighted one way and then it's weighted the other way. But it very much has driven me into a career that allows me the flexibility to have that balance, right? And sometimes if I need a little more in some area, there is the flexibility to do that. Now, I don't generally talk a lot about my experience at the startup, but I also worked with a gentleman who didn't believe women should be in technology. And so that was a very ongoing struggle for the time that I spent there, and trying to change some of those older mindsets with regards to whether or not women should be there. It didn't deter me, but it definitely got me to the point of recognizing, number one, those perceptions still exist. And number two, it really got me thinking, is this really where I want to spend my time, right? Especially if it wasn't providing the balance I was looking for. I wasn't looking for the constant commitment. And those things were not what I was really, really, really willing to take on, if it wasn't the ideal. And so that's what really led me down the path of, I'm going to find something that meets all of those needs, right? I can be flexible, I can have balance. It's a great culture that fits me, right? If the leadership style fits me. And so um, it really shaped the kind of questions that I asked when I was going through that interview process. And it really shaped how I look at it going forward now when I'm coaching folks early in their careers or even late in their careers at the organization I'm in now, is what is really what you're passionate about. It's not necessarily always exactly what you do every day. Some of it is, I'm more committed to the flexibility, or I'm more committed to these other pieces that I consider just as important as what I do every day. So there's my perspective.
I want to add on what Stacey said. I think finding the right fit for your personality is super important. And I've worked in a lot of different groups with a lot of different cultures. And I have figured out, the professional culture that works best for my personality. And I think that's really important because different people want different things. And that's okay. I mean, you can work with people who want different things, but it is nice to be in a group that has a similar working style to you. The other thing is, I also have 2 daughters, and I'll be honest with you. And I made sure I had a grant that I was basically paying my own salary when I had my first child, but I don't think my postdoc advisor was thrilled by the update. And then I had my second child after I was in industry. And so, there are some moms and women who are mothers that are in tech, and it is growing, but it's still not the majority. But one thing I did do is that I know Bayer, we have a women in data science community. So I try to be a part of that. And then I set up a small working group when I first got at the company for women in data science, because I realized that I don't think the men were intentionally being exclusive, but a lot of times they would work together on, oh, do you have a Docker that spins up and runs this? And, oh, how did you get, AWS step functions to work? And for whatever reason, the women were not in these conversations. And so I said, let's start up our own group where we can invite men to come speak, but let's start building a support group for us that's technically oriented. And so that was a big help. And I still am connected to those people today, even though maybe some of them work at different companies. So I would really encourage you to kind of, it's cheesy, but I was in a middle school this past week, and they had this poster that says your vibe attracts your tribe. And I know it's cheesy, but it's true. And so I would say find your tribe wherever you are, find that support group, and don't be afraid to build it out, because you are probably gonna run into some pushback. You're gonna run into those guys that are like, well, you're female, so you obviously don't know how to do this. And then sometimes females do it to other females too. It's not, so try to support each other. That's what I would say, and find those support groups and build them out. So I've had a real positive experience with that once I found those other people, and men too. I've had great advocates that are men too. So you just have to find those supporters.
That's great insight, Allison. I've heard of some companies. Oh yeah, go ahead, Olivia.
Oh yeah, I just want to second the Allison's point. So I feel like finding the right community is very, very important and very helpful. So I was just speaking from my own experience. So I believe lots of companies have their own communities that's related to the culture, related to the different professionals, and related to the different identities. And for me, I'm not an English native speaker. I was born and raised in China, and as an international student working in the tech industry. So maybe this is a culture difference thing. So I feel like I do notice that lots of people talking about there is a woman in tech, and the ratio is very low, and how to work with men on this one, the majority group on this one. So from this, I try not to think in that way, try not to build the invisible wall just from my own perspective. I tend to think we're just equal and we're the same. We can deliver both great works, and for collaborations, it's also like equal chance for male and female. And after I feel in that way, I think things start to, like, it's much easier for you to mingle in this kind of the working environment. So I feel like that is also very helpful.
And then I believe Tara Linda was unmuted as well.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. I'm in a very male-dominated industry. So when I was raising my 2 rounds of capital for Curate, 2% of venture capital dollars were going to women CEOs. Odds aren't good. Certainly gotten better, although I would say it's not necessarily great. That in itself led to a lot of challenges, and I think while the other ladies on the call have been fortunate to work inside of some larger companies or had the opportunity to network with people who were similar to them, that was never an option for me, just because there weren't a lot of women. So like I loved your comments about the tribe. So I had a tribe of really amazing girlfriends. One's a yoga teacher. Like I can't mix the girlfriend tribe and the work professional tribe, right? So I have the girlfriend tribe, and then I also have the work professional tribe. The work professional tribe is people who are like me, who are badass and killing it at their job and running companies, but they may not necessarily share a lot of personal attributes. How's that for being politically correct?
That's excellent. Thank you for your insights, all of you. Again, I think it's so interesting to see the different perspectives and where things intersect and where they don't, and how people approach this conversation of kind of managing your identity at work. So excellent.
I have a question actually. So I am the only woman in my program, given that my program's only 11 people. But I see that the other men in my program, they hang out together in things that cause, and like I'm not invited to those, but it causes them to have more camaraderie during work even. So they'll work in teams, or they'll like submit projects in teams and things like that. So have you faced that experience where the male workers on a team will hang out outside of work, and then that kind of carries on to work as well? And what would you do in situations like that?
I have run into that. It's tough. Because some jobs there's this expectation that you hang out socially, and I have to be honest, like when I'm not at work, I kind of want to be with my kids and my family. I don't, I don't really want to hang out with everybody. And I know it's really hard. But what I would encourage you to do is just, you can't change them. You can only have control over yourself. And so just when you have interactions with them, be nice, and also like you don't have to invite the whole group, but if you find someone who's approachable in that group, invite them to go do something or to work on a project. And sometimes if you get one person working with you, then the rest will sort of come. And sometimes I've noticed with male colleagues, I've had male colleagues that were great, there were no problems, but then I've also had certain groups of male colleagues, and usually they don't have many females or none in their group, and they're a little more, I don't know, it's a little hard to break into those groups. But if you find one or two of those guys who you feel like you can talk to in class and say, hey, you want to work on this problem set outside of class, and you get those one or two, usually the rest of the group slowly lets you into the circle, but it takes time. But I would just say, keep looking for the people that will support you, and know that it's not about you. It's usually about them. And so I wouldn't take it personally either.
I want to add just a quick comment. So when I first went to work in Milwaukee, as a young professional, I worked with a lot of engineers that came out of Milwaukee School of Engineering. They wouldn't even look me in the eye because they were too intimidated because I was a girl. And it wasn't because they had any judgment on what my skills were or weren't. And so they really would just be like looking at their toes. And so part of at that moment, it was, okay, so we can work together. This is going to be just fine. But now I want to teach you to look me in the eye, right? So understand at the age that you are, some of it might be because they're just, number one, intimidated, right? Because they just don't know how to talk to a girl in general, whether it's subject matter or not, right? Number two, I think I'm going to say this, and at your age, I'm not sure that I was able to do it myself. It took me quite a while to develop this, but I was very quiet. I'm still an introvert, right? And so what I learned very quickly when I got on the professional world all by myself with a whole bunch of guys, that's what I did. I joined a team. There was a bunch of guys, and I'm like, well, I don't want to be in Milwaukee all by myself. I know nobody, and you are now my peeps in every way, shape, or form, right? So we learned, I invested in trying to understand who they were and what they liked. And I would try to just like, hey, right. Oh, okay. They like a baseball game. Okay. Did you watch this baseball? And some of that then naturally happened, right? I got them to look me in the eye. We could have a discussion. And then it was like, okay, so now can we sit together and can we actually work on something together? Like I don't want to be by myself. And the worst they could say is, no, I would prefer not to. I'm like, okay, well, sounds great. Let me know if you change your mind, right? And then you kind of like, but you make yourself not, or help them not feel afraid of you because you're a girl, right? And I think that, like I said, I think that's a lot of it when it's that age, is just they're by being a girl and being in technology, right? Like I think that is a lot of it at that age. There are certainly exceptions to the rule, right? But try to needle yourself in just a tiny bit and let them realize that you are really just a person that is interested in the same thing, and let nature, I guess, take its course, right? You're going to encounter some folks that are still going to be the way they are, but others will be like, oh, okay. Some of my best friends were guys when I first moved up here because of that.
Linda chimed in to agree with Allison's comment before as well. Great comments from Stacey too. Linda, do you have more to add? Oh.
I can just say that I had to build my own group, right? People were definitely getting together in a business sense, and I wasn't included in those conversations. And I needed help and support, and running a company is a scary, big thing to do on your own. And I found people that I thought were really good and surrounded myself with them. I set up the time when we met for breakfast. I would bring treats, like do all the things to like get your foot in the door there, and then build yourself that tribe. Don't wait, do it first.
Excellent. Olivia, go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually want to share a little story from my ex-coworker. So she was the only female software engineer on the team of 5. And on her first day, all the male co-workers went to some place. So the girl feel like, oh, I actually follow them to really fit in the group. And then at the end, she realized all of them went to the restroom altogether. So I just want to point out that people are different. So there is some difference, but it doesn't mean there is nothing in common. So in terms of like fitting, for what I would do is just find out the common ground between me and that person and start a conversation with that. And at the beginning, I do also feel like, what if there are topics about video games, sports that I'm not interested in and I don't really have any knowledge to check in. But you can start your own topic, like either food or like travel, like universal stuff, to make the distance shorter. So I think that's very helpful.
Absolutely. Lots of similarities, even when there are things that are different. Great. So we had a question come in from as a direct message from one of the folks in message today or in group today. This is a two-parter. For entry-level analysts in the tech industry, do you have any tips on improving analytical thinking or business acumen? And then there's actually a second question, which I think we'll ask that one in just a minute. But I'd love to hear the panelists' insights on building that, again, analytical thinking and business acumen as an entry-level analyst.
I feel like, especially for the analytical thinking, directly jumping. So in terms of analytical thinking, and especially business acumen, I find out reading the investment banking's analytical report is very helpful. It's not only help you to understand the overall analytics framework to be a very clear and structured framework, but also help you to understand the context of the industry and gradually help you to build up the necessary knowledge to understand either the industry or the company. So, and second is just purely in terms of the interview. So I do find that the consulting mock interview is very helpful for the analytical and the business acumen type of the interview. So over there, you can meet with different people and they offer you different perspective on how to tackle the business problem. And especially in the consulting way, we tend to have this structured way to, and also more like a framework to answer the generic questions. It will help you to speed up to be more familiar with this business acumen and analytical interview questions.
I think I would say the key thing is being curious and listening. So I've been on many projects where there's a customer who's not very tech savvy per se. They have a problem they need to solve. And then there's sort of like the IT specialists who are trying to build the tool. And usually there's like the IT people think they delivered, and then the customer's like, I can't use this tool. Well, they delivered something, but I can't use it. And so what I found works the best is when those two people or those two groups have to sit in a room. You know, I like agile development for those who are on the call. And it's about when a customer is asking you for something, there's usually a reason they're asking for it. They may not be using the same terminology that you use, but if you can say, hey, can you show me like why you want this thing? Can you show me your daily job and show me how you want to use this tool and what decision you're trying to make? And then if you can see the problem they're trying to solve, you're in a much better position to build a relevant tool. Whereas sometimes you go into the meeting, and I've actually been on both sides. I've been the IT person trying to build the tool, and I've also been the customer. And I have been in those meetings where the customer comes in and they're like, I want this. And the IT person's like, no, you don't. And I'm like, even if you think that, don't say that, because that person just stopped, like they turned off when you said that. And so just let them maybe listen and then say, hey, am I understanding right? This is what you want. And if I give you this, could this work? And so I think if you approach it that way, it works really well. So I think the tip is listening, because there's small details in there.
Fantastic.
I would definitely concur. As a consultant, I get an opportunity to coach folks through learning a new industry all the time, right? Because you go from project to project. You're not committed to an industry. You learn a new industry. That's one of the fantastic things about consulting for me personally. I totally agree with Allison with regards to listening, right? And asking questions. I think one of the things that you might want to learn is tell me more, right? Because not everyone responds well to why, right? Or what are you talking about? It's tell me more about that, right? And those are those key phrases to kind of not turn people off and actually like listen and take it in. The other thing is repeat what you understand. I think that's the other thing that's going to help you validate what you've learned. And this is another one that I think is actually pretty high up in importance, but you know how you learned, like you've been through this, right? You've been doing classes all the time, maybe it's note taking, and then you've got some way of already learning. Don't throw that out the door when you enter the professional world, right? Like I do wonderfully with a paper notebook, right? And I to this day still use a paper notebook to take notes during client calls. It doesn't mean that I don't sometimes have to transpose those to something electronic, but I take it in and I remember it better when I'm doing my learning style. So don't throw your stuff out that you are used to doing to learn something. You're still learning something. Just make sure that you be you, as my children always tell me, you be you, right? And you're going to set yourself up for success if you do what you know to learn something new.
I'd also like to add that I'm all in on listening. That makes a ton of sense. If you are not in a consulting role and you have the opportunity to shadow other people in their work, or we use Donut, which is like this silly little Slack integration where you match people together and you get 15 minutes. And like, it seems crazy, but meeting all those different people and you get to ask about their work, it builds so much more knowledge about your entire organization. Even though it may start with like, what are you doing this weekend, right? It ends with really a deep dive into somebody's like day-to-day, their problems, their understanding of things. It can be really, really interesting. So right now in my organization, if somebody new starts, we send them through, like you meet with somebody in sales and do a sit down, and you meet with somebody in marketing. You like make your rounds all the way through, and that can really help speed that up. So if that's not offered to you, I would definitely ask. The other thing is that before you get hired, if you have an interview and you don't think you showed enough business acumen that you necessarily could have in the interview, you can always take a video of yourself and a screen share and like dig in on a project you've had and email that across. I can validate that has been a successful tactic at Curate.
Fantastic. Thank you for everyone's insight on that's a really good question, and it's kind of a tough skill to learn. So it's great. Insider knowledge, absolutely. And then we had a second question come through from the chat as well. How would you like to deliver that one?
Sure. So the question basically is, as interviewers, what's in your view the most important characteristic for new grad interviewees?
Sure, Linda, go ahead.
I'm so excited. We hire a lot of new grads. So I look a lot at projects. So if it's a developer role, we're digging into the GitHub, right? I want to like, please don't tell me you spent 4 years anywhere in university and didn't build a reasonable looking GitHub repository. So we just want to make sure like we're looking at your projects, we're looking at your work. Ideally, you've done some internships and somebody else has taught you like you know, the 101 of how to write a professional email, you know, things of that nature, but we certainly will do it if we need to. But really it's about your ability of what you've figured out in school, what you've been able to apply, and you're showing that you can like pick things up quickly and learn things fast. And like however you can show that is really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Allison, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been on a lot of interview committees. And what I would say is, so at Bayer, there's going to be two types of interviews that you go through. So one's a technical interview, and they'll probably just ask you if you have, you know, like basically if you can understand and write R and Python and have some experience with cloud, AWS, you're fine. But then they'll give you like a technical question to go through. So they want to see that you can think critically. You don't have to get the right answer. They just want to see if you can describe the way you think. So they might ask you like, estimate the number of cell phone users in Wisconsin. And they just want to see the logic you use and the assumptions. And they want you to talk them through it. Then the second interview piece is behavioral interviews. And for that, they really want you to be able to demonstrate that you've been able to interact with people in like a team project and delivered and get things done. And they'll ask you like, tell us a time when something didn't go right. And as long as you have little stories and anecdotes to say how you handled different situations, that's what they're looking for. So I would think if you have a project, hopefully it's like an internship, or even if it's a school project, that's okay too. But if you have a project that you worked on for a while with a group of people, that is going to be a key experience during your interview.
I think I would add just one more thing to what's been stated already by Allison and Tara Linda is culture fit. At least for our organization, right? We're also putting weight on how well will you fit into how we do.
Yeah, and for me, I'm just speaking from my own experience. So in Uber and Square, we tend to have 5 to 7 rounds of interviews on the on-site day, and the interview went from the coding, the statistics, machine learning, experiments, business acumen, and some overall business and the cultural fit. So I have to say, all of these interviews are equally important. So yeah, especially for new grads, we tend to look for the new grad that already built a solid technical foundation, such as coding and the statistical or this technical knowledge. So if the new grads tend to have like the and not doing that well on the business acumen and the cultural fit, we still tend to give the go, but we're really looking for improvements on their like the first 3.5 years during their tenure. So I would say it really depends on the company and probably also depends on the position. So, and for that, you may want to double check with the HR to confirm if they're like the priority on this different type of interview, and maybe the HR can give you more information on that.
Fantastic. Excellent insights all across the panel. I want to bring to attention in the chat, we do have services at SuccessWorks to help you prepare for interviews, doing mock interviews and what have you. But these are all really good insights into kind of what employers are looking for when you go into interviews. Each company is a little different, but this is a good kind of cross section. Excellent. Yeah, practice is really important with interviewing. I can say that as a career advisor. The more you practice, the more comfortable you are sharing your story. So I think that's kind of true with what all 4 of our panelists said today. Excellent. So let's Are there any other questions from the audience? No question is too small. Remember, these panelists are here to answer your questions and kind of help you navigate your own career success and your own career path. So if you have questions, please feel free to speak up or drop their questions in the chat and we can read them for you.
I have a question. Is there any like skills or like experiences that you've had that you feel like were most helpful in helping you become successful, and like maybe like what were those?
Yeah, so what skills are most beneficial did you find most helpful in your career, and how would you describe those?
So again, mine would be graduate school, or if you're an undergraduate doing like I don't know if you guys do like thesis projects, but it's a big project that you have to plan, right? And you do run into roadblocks, and you have to find ways around those roadblocks, right? And you need to make it happen. And so I think that the biggest learning experience I got was when I was at Wisconsin in grad school, and I got handed this project, and it was like, make it work, talk to who you need to make it work. And if you can show that you can do that with a big project, even if it's different from what you're interviewing for, if the project subject matter is different, it shows that you have perseverance, you think critically, and most of all, you know, you're gonna see it through. And so I think that that's huge, because I will tell you, when we get an interviewee who only tells me about like classes they've taken and small projects, I'm like, well, okay, that's great, but like I can't really assess how the person's going to do in a real work environment. Whereas if you tell me like, oh, I did this thesis project, or I did this internship and I had to drive this project, then I feel like I can read in more what you're going to be like in the work environment, because you're sort of more on your own in those experiences than in like a class assignment per se.
The figure it out skill. Muscle, the figure it out muscle. I think that's probably the most helpful, and it's really hard to train that. People either have it or don't have it. So being able to sniff that out in an interview, like what Allison said, this is off topic, but changes the tune from you being like a questionable hire to a really strong hire.
That's really great insight. I hear that a lot from about entrepreneurship, of just being able to figure stuff out, but that's definitely a career skill. Stacey, you're unmuted.
I just want to add to that, like take it out of the interview context, right? And I think it's very important at some point in your life you find a mentor or board of mentors, right? So I think a mentor from the perspective of having someone to talk through things, and someone that's encouraging you to grow, and someone that's encouraging you to pursue things that you're very interested in. And I know that's I don't think it's too young at this age to have that starting of that, like I say, board of mentors, because you might have a couple of different folks you go to for different things. There you go, board of directors. Yep. So it's important, right? And I think when I was leaving a college, I undermined the importance of that until I had someone in a leadership role tell me that what I couldn't do versus tell me what I could do, right? And so when I found my mentor, that's really what gave me a whole new perspective on my professional career, right? And it's continuously grown. So find that person for you, or persons, and use them when you need to.
Excellent advice of the board of directors, your mentor board, your brain trust, whatever you call it. Having allies to support you is huge. Olivia, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say for me is the skill is to identify the right impactful opportunity. So this involves that first of all, you need to understand the business questions very well, and also You need some network with the other co-workers that you can collaborate with. And the rest is, after you identify the opportunity, do you have the muscle to tackle it? So all the three things combined together can really push your career very long forward.
Outstanding. Thanks all. I think one question that, again, students, please feel free to chime in with your questions, but I think a good natural follow-up here as far as kind of building skills is all four of you have completed graduate educations, PhD, master's, MBA, some variant on that. All of those, going to grad school is a decision unto itself and is kind of different than making the decision on a bachelor's. Can you talk about your decision to go to grad school and kind of what went into that decision process?
Yeah, I can start. So when I was a sophomore or junior in undergrad, my mom was like, "Oh, you're going to go to grad school, right?" And I was like, "No, I'm not going to go to grad school. I'm going to have an undergrad degree that I can get a job right away." And so that graduate school was not in my plan. And then junior year, I realized that I liked this job so much that I did in this genetics lab that I was like, man, I would work here for free. And so then I realized that I needed to go to grad school to sort of get more skills in that career path. And so that's how I made the decision. But one thing I do tell people, because I've mentored some undergraduates when I was a postdoc, and what I would say is think about what you want to do, and think about the type of job you want to have, because I'm really glad I got a graduate degree and I'm really happy with it and I love it. But I acknowledge that now that I have a PhD, I'm much more specialized in my field. And so I don't have as many job opportunities as maybe somebody with a master's. And since my husband and I both have PhDs, we had the two-body problem, which gets really interesting when you have two specialists. And so, we had basically the number of cities where we could both find a job we wanted was, maybe a handful of cities in the US. So I would say it's about what's right for you. And it's about, just think about how much you want to specialize versus how much you want to be a generalist. And that'll sort of help you decide when to go to grad school and if you need to go. And if you do go, what you decide to go into, whether it's an MBA or a technical specialty PhD. So I would just encourage you and talk to people. This SuccessWorks seems to be a great asset where talk to people who took that path, see if you want that job. I had friends that were MD PhDs and I talked to them and I was like, man, I never want to be an MD PhD after talking to them. Now, some people love it, but I was like, this isn't for me. Don't want to do medical school. So I made friends with people that were in graduate school before I went, and I talked to them and asked them about their experiences. And based on that information, I said, oh, okay, graduate school in genetics is what I want to do. So I would encourage you to just find those people and ask questions, see what fits best for you.
I would concur with the comment that was made in the chat, a job that will help you pay for it, because there's lots of places now that will offer some kind of educational assistance. And so that I would totally with. I'm going to offer you a way different perspective. I went for my MBA after undergrad. I only waited a year or two. And so I think I was too young at that time to really understand what I was doing it for. I think probably some of my motivations at the time were a little bit crazy, right? Because I didn't want to wait too long to get it, didn't want to wanted to get on with the fun, right? Like, and not have to worry about going back to school, etc. Although I don't, now that I'm after that, right? I really appreciate the experience of going through that. I wish I would have been a little bit more focused from the perspective of understanding why I was doing it, but it has only helped me have greater perspective, understanding business in general, right? And because I did just do we'll say a generic business administration master's, right? So I chose not to specialize in technology, because you could certainly specialize with an MBA in technology. I chose to keep it very, very basic, so that I could just make sure that I was well-rounded in that regard, especially since I had a math and computer science background in undergrad. So I just make sure you just understand. I think Allison has hit it right on the head, right? Make sure you understand why you're doing it, and make sure it's what it's going to help you get forward.
Yeah, for me, I actually did a little bit of reverse engineering on the decision of whether to go to the grad school. So I always were into the data science field. So I look at that moment the industry requirement for what they need for the data scientist. So usually it's a master's degree. So and I just go for it. It's quite a simple decision for me.
Yeah, that's definitely the case in some newer fields like data science, machine learning, some other kinds of technology. The grad degree in certain kinds of genomics, computational statistics often will require that master's. So I think that's good insight as well. Tara Linda, and then I see Srinitha. Well, we'll get your question in just a minute. But Tara Linda, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think grad school is an odd combination of people who have no idea what they want to be when they grow up, or making a career change. And that's sometimes the easiest way to do it, is to go back to school and like hit the reset button. That was me. And also people who really have figured it out, know what they want to do, like what Allison said, of being really specific and specialized in your field. So it can work in other direction, but it's certainly not, it's often not necessarily a requirement, especially in today's competitive job market. But when the job market is less competitive, it can really be a make you a standout advantage, or open up doors that weren't necessarily open. But odds are pretty high you're going to learn much more on the job than you will in grad school. At least that was my experience.
Yeah, I think that varies depending on the field. But again, there's a lot of variety in there. But it's always great to hear people's insights into the choices they make on such a big decision as grad school. So thank you all for. Srinitha, you had your hand up. Would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, hi everyone. I had a question about basically being a graduate with a non-technical background who's been doing work which borderlines data science, because a lot of work that I do involves big data and a lot of techniques to do with data science. Are there any particular ways in which a person with a non-technical graduate degree can pitch themselves or be more desirable of a candidate or demonstrate their skills to potential employers?
I just hired somebody that I think fits this description, so I can go. So it's somebody coming out of a crap, I'm gonna forget the name of it. The people that love spreadsheets and finance like more than anybody else, actuary. So sorry, it just took me a second. So this person that's what they had done for the last several years, and they had taught themselves Python and some other coding languages, which we really needed. I took a big risk in hiring this person. And so how they stood out to us was by showing the GitHub account, talking about projects, talking about, hey, this wasn't in my role as an actuary, but I built this thing anyway. I did this little mini project to make my team better that involved my skills in Python. Things like that really can set you aside by you have to do a little show and tell in order to land a role without quite the right. But I can tell you that oftentimes it pays off dramatically for an employer. So we took a risk on this person. I'm sure they won't stay around forever, because when you take a risk, you're able to get somebody at a little bit of a lower salary than what you would normally. But like, I understand that in the next jump, like their salary will be at market rate. So it's either balls in my court to keep them, right? So like, I either got to put money where we've learned and honed skills, or know that they'll jump. But it's all about like knowing your risk, probably taking that lower number and like proving that you can do it. I hope that is helpful.
Yes, thank you. Thanks a lot.
I totally agree with Tara Linda about if you can show your GitHub repo. I'm self-taught in, well, actually, so I graduated my graduate degree in 2008. And so data science didn't really exist at that point, or it was called statistics and quantitative genetics. So I remember my PhD advisor just said, okay, I'm going to give you a month to teach yourself how to code. And I was like, okay. So I'm self-taught in the coding languages, like Python and R and SAS and Perl and what have you. But so I think there's a lot to be said for self-taught. If you can show a GitHub repo, if you could show the tools you've built. But also, I mean, nowadays, I know Bayer, what they do for the employees is once, when you're employed at Bayer, they want everyone to be taking data camp classes and Coursera classes on coding. And so there's this big push for everyone, not just the tech people, to know how to code and to understand data science. So I think if you can show that you've already self-taught and you're open to learning more and say, hey, do you have any programs where I can continue to grow this skill set? They're also looking for those people because they want people who will keep growing. They don't want someone who's not interested in acquiring new skills. So I would really emphasize that when you interview, all the things you've learned on your own and what you show the drive you have to learn more too.
I would most certainly agree with that piece. Like and everything that both Allison and Tara Linda has said. The one thing that I'll just comment on is potentially, if you look more at a smaller organization, they're not going to have as many people, right? So they're going to hire folks that can hit more of their bucket filled. If you're looking in a larger organization, there's right or wrong, right? There's generally a little bit more opportunity there because they can take more risk on usually, right? So if there's any concern about risk, you're going to have probably a little bit better shot unless you hit a lot of buckets in a smaller organization. So that's very generalized, right? I mean, keep exceptions, but in general, that's what I have found.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and in terms of the just passing through your resume to the HR screening, so I would say definitely improve all your technical skills based on all this other panels just mentioned before. And another way I noticed that is new grad tend to network and find through their network and ask them to pass through their resumes directly to HR because lots of companies have their internal hiring system. If it is a resume from the internal referral, it tends to have the better chance to get a first round of interview, regardless your background. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Awesome. Again, calling out allies is helping to make shifts or ask questions about how to make those pivots is always a really good thing. Finding professional allies, networking is always valuable, I think is one of the messages. But yeah, excellent feedback all around on how to pivot into a new industry. Excellent. Let me see. We have some time. We have time for more questions. Are there any other questions from the audience, from our viewers today?
Yeah, all right. I think we have one from the audience here. So I'll just go ahead and ask it to the group. So somebody in the audience asked, I heard that networking is probably one of the most important things for getting an internship and or a full-time job. Spoiler alert, it's very, very important. But I'm not sure how I can go about doing this really in Madison. The person feels that they would have a probably more flexibility to be able to do this in larger cities perhaps. Could you share your experiences about networking while you were going through your academic and your career journey? So through grad school, while you're undergrad, in your jobs. I will put a real quick shameless plug in for SuccessWorks. Thanks you for attending this event. We offer a lot of great information and resources, including literal tangible people like Beth and myself that work as career specialists to help give you guidance in that area. We have a wonderful website. The career communities for tech data analytics has web information about that, which Beth's just linked. So anyways, for the panelists, can you give us your perspectives on your networking that you did while you were going through school and obviously now that you're establishing your careers?
Yeah, the first thing I just want to say though, I don't think you should feel limited by being in Madison or that the internship has to be in Madison, because one good thing that's come from COVID, I haven't been in, I mean, we're still not back in the office. We might get back in March. No, yeah, maybe. And so almost all of our interns recently have been remote. Okay, especially data science or analysts. So I would encourage you, do not feel geographically limited in your options, because I would think now though more than ever, there's a lot of internships that are fully remote. Now that has its downsides and its advantages, but I just want to call that out. The second thing is, I would just say, talk to your professors. If you're in a class and you connect with a professor, ask them if there's like TA positions or if there's research assistant positions. I kind of lucked out. I got my research job the day after I graduated high school because my mom knew a doctor who was looking for an undergrad research assistant. And I said, hey, I'll do it. And so you never know who it's going to be. It might not be through a professional network. It might just be through a friend, and then go to networking events, try to talk to people you don't know. I tell people that the networks that have resulted in positions for me, if you had told me at the time that was like the person who was going to get me a job 10 years from now, I would not have believed you. And so, I would just say talk to everyone and then let them know what you're interested in. Okay, make sure you know your brand. Because if I meet you and I say, oh, that person, she really wants to do this. I know, like Cindy wants to do this. And I meet Bob and Bob says he needs someone who does that. I'm going to be like, hey, I met this person. Can I give you her name? And so let everyone know that you're looking, and then they can help you maybe connect with somebody else.
Oh, excellent insight, Allison. Having your personal brand ready. We talk about that sometimes at SuccessWorks. We'll also call that your introduction speech or your elevator speech. So if you don't have one of those prepared, it's a good idea to prep that. It's just a quick way to introduce yourself to strangers. From our other panelists, any additional thoughts or insights on networking, how to do it effectively?
Connect with people on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn inbox, and actually as I thought about what I was going to say, I went out and just myself requested connections with all the other panelists. So like it's easy to do. It doesn't take very long. How long has everybody else been talking, right? But it actually is an opportunity to get in front of people in a way that is less noisy. So LinkedIn, everybody has LinkedIn inbox. Well, that definitely has clutter and crap in it. It is much less cluttered and full of crap than a regular email inbox. So it's an easy way to get in front of people. It's also a guaranteed way to make sure that like it's the right person. You're not guessing on an email address, anything like that. So that's a really easy way. People get me all the time by ending their message with "on Wisconsin."
Badgers love helping other Badgers. Olivia, go ahead.
Yeah, so I usually network, when I was in Wisconsin, I usually network with alumni as well. And I also found out that the meetup.com sometimes have a very good network events and group all these young professionals all together. So I think that's also the very good opportunity. You meet with new people. And I also feel like this program helped to connect all these people around and set up a good time with the current students. This is something that you can all also utilize. I feel like this is also a very good resource. Yeah, and speaking of the city, so I have to say because I took grad school in New York City, so over there I do experience more networking events opportunity there, and it's more than networking opportunities. It's more about you just get a chance to meet all kinds of different persons overall. And gradually you just expand your network. And I actually asked several of my friends to refer for the first jobs to several companies. So this is also very helpful. But given the pandemic now, I feel like everything is equal because everyone tends to like have some sort of distance or avoid the too close connections or something. So yeah, so as long as you have their contact information, I would say don't be shy and make the first move.
I don't know that I can add anything additional to that. I mean, look for anything around you. I think it really is part of your network, right? And you have no idea where those opportunities are going to come from. So make the connections, whether they're a personal interest that turn into something potentially later. It is really just important to a network of people, what your interests are or sets are, because the opportunities come from everywhere.
And the other thing I forgot to mention before, maybe volunteering opportunities. I know in St. Louis, there's like, is it like Coder Girl, where you can be a mentor to high school girls for coding? That's a good way to network with the other mentors. And then also, if you become a software carpentry instructor, I would highly recommend that, because then pre-pandemic, it was volunteer work, but they would pay your travel fees for you to go to different universities and teach classes on best coding practices. And that's another great way to network and get it on your CV. So those are things I would look for, tech-related volunteer opportunities in your community too.
Software carpentry is something I hadn't heard of before. Can you tell us a little about that, Allison?
I know that I'll look for the website and see if I can send it to you guys at the SuccessWorks. I'm on my iPad right now, so it's hard to look. But so pre-pandemic, Bayer supported me in becoming a carpentry instructor. So I had to take an in-person class, but it was really like, what they would do is, then I have a friend now who does it, who works for Bayer, and he gets flown to different universities, and then he basically teaches people like introductory coding in like Python or R. But I would think it's a great way to get into a coding community and find opportunities that way. So I will look for that website and hope maybe I can figure out a way. Oh, someone beat me to it. That's perfect. So yeah, I would look into that, because honestly, if I had found out about it when I was younger, I think also it's kind of cool if they pay for you to travel. Now this was pre-pandemic, but maybe they'll start it up again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's good resources. And there are things like that on campus too, that are volunteer development and kind of exchanging information. We are nearing the end of our time here today, so we probably have time for one more question from our audience. Are there any questions that we want to try to sneak in here at the end of our time to get together today?
I would ask, what's your favorite part about being a woman in tech?
That's a great question.
For me, it sort of like enables me to kind of push boundaries in my field and do things like with other people, but a small team, like do things no one else has ever done. So like, I mean, one of my favorite things was we got to collaborate with Amazon, and like I broke one of the Amazon web services. I broke step functions, but I was like, oh my gosh, I broke step functions. That's awesome, because I tried to put too much data through it. So like, I don't know, it's kind of fun to be like at the edge, right? At the bleeding edge of technology and pushing the boundaries. So for me, I guess that's what's exciting. Obviously someone who is smarter than me fixed step functions and now it's fine. But it's just fun. Technology is a tool that lets you just kind of push what's possible. And for me, that's the most fun part of it.
I think I'd say the same thing. In mine's a slightly different vein, right? I get to lead a team of individuals into a new every time we start a new project, right? And get to learn something. We get to set the path for folks to be able to teach it to others at our organization when they go into that industry. And it's really just about having those. I don't think it matters that I'm a woman in technology. It just matters that I'm a super fun, like it's a fun team that I'm on, and I get to set an example. And if it does matter for women that come behind me, then hopefully I'm paving that path.
Changing the tide. That's what I love.
That's great answers. Olivia?
Yeah, for me, I really like the growth mindset that the entire tech have. So it's not something like you have this professional and you set in this way. There is always changing and keep moving. And there are such an environment that really encourage people to improve and learn from different perspectives. So I really like that, and it helped me to really open many doors, I feel like.
Fantastic. Yeah. I like how everyone's identities kind of factor into things, but I love how the boundaries are limitless, and that as much as there's power of being a woman in tech, and there's also kind of just being in tech. It's a good place to be. So thank you so much for all of your insights today. We have about 5 minutes left, actually, so we do have time for one more question, or if the panelists have questions for our audience, that could be a thing we could do too.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, because as you guys know, it's a very competitive, at least it's hard. The companies are tripping over themselves to get good applicants, right? It's competitive. So for the students on the phone, what is it that you're looking for in an employer? What makes it one employer more attractive than the other?
That's an outstanding question. Students, is anyone willing to chime in and share what they're looking for in an employer? As the newest crop of new grads, you guys are setting the trends for the future.
You guys don't know how many meetings we have where we're like, how can we attract new graduates to Bayer? So that's why I'm asking.
Yes, please answer. We're going to start calling on people. I'm going to cry. Come on, really?
So I think for me, like what makes one employer better than the other is always feedback. And I really appreciate feedback after an interview or feedback just in the workplace, because I'm trying to learn as I work, and I do want to further my career in many ways. So I think that employer, whether it's whether it's good feedback or bad feedback, I think just constructive criticism after an interview really helps, because then it kind of gives me a glimpse of what that employer will be when I work there, because I'd want open and honest communication.
Thank you for being a brave soul and answering that question.
Thanks, Stacey. I will take that feedback back to HR, who sometimes doesn't want us to provide feedback, but maybe we can start changing that.
I think maybe a good final question here as we're wrapping up to our panelists. After listening to you today, what is one step or one action that students can do today to start or continue their journey in this field? Just one thing.
I would second what Tara Linda said about LinkedIn. A lot of job ads on for Bayer I share on LinkedIn, and my colleagues share. And once you're in industry, LinkedIn is probably the primary social networking tool. So I think it's an easy thing to do. Set up your profile. Take some time to set up your profile. People do look at it. Headhunters contact you via LinkedIn. I've been contacted by headhunters via LinkedIn. So it's very little time for a big payoff.
I second that.
Yep, and very easy to do now. And if you were like me and graduated when it was becoming a thing and didn't end up adding anybody, you will be very sad in the future. So don't be like Tara Linda, go add people on LinkedIn.
Yeah, great insights.